this year, and we're going to have a spouses panel to kind of kick things off. And, you know, I really don't know how to describe it because this is our first time doing it. So I'll give Ms. Gerard the mic and let her start it.
Good morning. Okay, we're going to sit down if that's okay. Can everybody see us if we sit? We'd rather you not see us, but we are going to sit. We'll be a little bit more comfortable. Yes, so General Neal approached me about 3 weeks ago and said, we're going to do something new at the opening ceremony, and we would love to have you speak about the spouses. And I'm listening to him, and I said, well, what do you want me to talk about? And he said, well, just talk about being a military spouse, maybe something that you did right, something that you did wrong. I said, well, how long do you want me to talk? And he said, well, about 10 minutes. And I said, I'm thinking, well, I can definitely get in what I've done right in 10 minutes, but I'm going to need a lot more time than 10 minutes to talk about what I've done wrong. But anyway, I said, yes, sure, why not? Can I bring some friends with me? Military spouses perform much better in a pack, I think. So I've got Mitzi Simmons to my left and Yedif Simmons to my right. We're thrilled to be here with you. And I thought, well, how hard can this be, really, to get up in the opening ceremony and speak? And now that I'm here, it is definitely a lot harder than I thought it was. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and a little bit about Joe before I get started. I'm a 30-year military spouse. Army. Yay! Although I do love my air family as well. Yay. Yay, air. Okay. I am an Army mom. I got lucky and married my high school sweetheart. Yep, we're up there, although that was college time. But let's see. We have 3 boys, 26, 24, 23. And let's see, Joe was 20 years active duty before we came into the Guard. So my experience is probably going to be a little bit different than most of you out there. Definitely a little different than Yedif because we raised our boys during our active duty time versus Guard. And I will say that both have their own challenges. But anyway, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I learned early on in my military career that has helped me the entire time, active duty and Guard. And then I'm going to tell you a couple of characteristics about Joe and I that has helped us survive this 30-year journey. So the first thing I want to say that I learned early on was to count the days and not the dates. As a military spouse, you realize that they're going to miss a lot of holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, whatever the case may be. Joe's missed them all, missed Christmases, Thanksgivings, whatever. And it's very, very difficult because you feel like that's when you should be with your family. But in the military, you have family everywhere. So definitely makes up for that. And it's very important to focus on celebrating the days, especially with your children. You can ask, well, we just had Memorial Day services. You could ask any of the spouses that I had the opportunity to meet this past weekend, and they would be thankful for days. They're not worried about dates. So the other thing I would highly suggest, is to be very flexible in your time, in your expectation as a spouse. Sometimes we get set on, this is what I want to do, this is where we need to be, this is what's best for my family. And the military definitely has a different plan. So you just have to go with it. Being flexible means that you're willing to bend, but not break. And so the military life definitely challenges you. You can actually roll up in a ball, but you will stand again through friendships and just time, and you'll be stronger when you do. So those are the 2 things that I learned early and has lasted my 30 years, helped me through my 30 years. And now I'm going to talk about a couple of characteristics about Joe and I. So when we go and speak at Strong Bonds, people will typically, and that's about relationships, people will typically say, well, what has gotten you through your relationship? Or, what's some maybe key points you could tell us? And our first thing is our faith, for sure. We always say that, but then we, like to say a couple of things that are personal. So I usually say sense of humor or, kind or forgiving, but I decided that I would ask our boys what they thought about what personality traits they would say we both possessed. And this is what they came up with, that we are both very competitive and we are both very stubborn. And yes, so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, were we terrible parents? And how in the world do you make that work? Because when you think competitive, you think, well, I just want to win. And when you think stubborn, you think, well, I'm always right. So how do you make that work in a relationship? And so real quickly, like I said, I did marry my high school sweetheart, but we met in the gym on the basketball court. So I'm going to relate those two things to basketball. It's one of our favorite sports. When our boys come to visit, even now, we will find a basketball court somewhere, indoors, outdoors, and we play as a family. Our boys are extremely tall, so you could understand why we do enjoy the sport. But anyway, when it comes to being competitive, what does that mean? It means you want to win. Of course you want to win. If you're a competitor, it's always funner to win. The alternative is losing. But what does it take to be a winner? It takes hard work, commitment, dedication. And I do think that you need all those things to have a good relationship, whether it be with your spouse, your children, your coworkers. So those are all good things. So if you want to win, you want to be the best player on the team that you can, but it is a team effort. So it doesn't matter how good you are, but what about the other 4 players you're playing with? So what kind of leader are you on the basketball court? You got to make sure the other 4 are up on their game and being the best that they can be as well. Because last time I checked, you couldn't throw the ball from out of bounds to yourself and go down and score, nor can one person defend 5. So, do you encourage others? Do you bring out the best in other people? Do you make them rise to the occasion? All those are very good qualities to have as a spouse, a partner, a friend, a parent. So I would say that winning and being competitive is not necessarily a bad thing. And especially speaking to this room of military folks, winning is the only option. Losing is not an option in the military. Winners win, I guess, as General Cardin would say. All right, so the other one, being stubborn. That one's a little bit more difficult to explain, but I will say that I think that Joe and I are very stubborn or firm in our faith. We're not going to give up on each other. We're not going to give up on making the best of the situation. So I would say that being stubborn is a pretty good thing. But other than that, I think those are, that describes us a little bit. We're very, very proud to serve with each and every one of you. And I'm going to pass the mic on to Mitzi.
Good morning. When I found out that General Neal asked for an air spouse to speak at today's opening ceremony, my first reaction, which is always my reaction when I'm asked to speak in public, was, how do I get out of this? And Susan's persistence and stubbornness, I'm here. So one of the other reasons that I agreed to speak today, because this is a topic that I feel like I have a lot of experience with. I've been a military spouse for 33 years. I was married. In 1985, I married a young second lieutenant who was a supply officer at Moody Air Force Base. We did 15 years of active duty, and now we've had 18 years of National Guard service. In the National Guard, he's been a technician, AGR, and now a state employee. So I feel pretty qualified to be here representing the spouses today. We started our journey in Georgia, then we had assignments in Mississippi, Arkansas, North Carolina, Panama, Louisiana, Illinois, and we came full circle. We're back here in Georgia where it all started. I also have 13 years as a military child, and now I have 4 years as a mother-in-law. My son-in-law is a service in Alabama. He's currently deployed. So I believe all of this qualifies me to be here today as a military spouse. General Mark Welsh was the previous Chief of Staff of the Air Force. Jesse and I were fortunate to get to hear him speak. During his career, he had a motto, and it was, "Every airman has a story." And I want to change that a little bit today because I believe every military spouse has a story. And I struggled to figure out how to share some of these stories with you today. So I decided to email my spouses, and I asked them what they wish that you knew, the servicemen. So instead of speaking to the spouses today, if it's okay, my words are actually going to be directed towards you, the airmen and the soldiers here in the room. Thank you. And what we
Hold it.
all right. What I decided to do was something called, my favorite comedian ever was David Letterman, and I enjoyed his top 10 countdowns at the beginning of the show. So I compiled all of the email responses that I received from your spouses into a top 10 countdown, and I want to share with you what it was they wish you knew about being a military spouse. So, number 10, I'm fiercely proud of you, and I worry constantly, but this has caused me to grow my faith in God and my love for you. I may complain about the time away from family, but I do see the sacrifices that you make for others as well. I forgot to tell you, some of these are good, and some of these you guys have a little bit to learn and go home. So, number 9, your sacrifice is also my sacrifice. I'm not necessarily putting my life on the line, but juggling everything at home is a great responsibility, especially since you, my partner, are not there with me. This is true even more once children are involved. Number 8, this one's really important, gentlemen. If your wife likes social events, take her to social events. I have heard from so many spouses that didn't get to go to something simply because their spouse never told them about it. In the National Guard, the spouses don't necessarily have the social support that they do in the active duty world. Yet you now are being asked to do the same jobs as active duty soldiers. So listen carefully. Just simply taking your spouse to meet other spouses is a great step toward them being able to build their own support community. And this is important when you're away from home. Number 7, my non-military friends don't understand what a deployment feels like, and that can feel isolating. People treat me differently when you're gone. National Guard spouses often feel left out, not just because we don't live near each other, we don't have groups to join on base, and we don't qualify for some of the same benefits, but because sometimes people define military spouses as someone who's married to an active duty member. I define them as being anyone who's married to a service member, and that includes us. Number 6, another important one. Any information is good information. A lot of you, from the number of spouses that sent this message to me, say that you wait till the last minute to tell your spouse something. Just give us a heads up. That's all we want to know. We are flexible. We understand things will happen, things will change, but not knowing and finding out at the last minute is very frustrating. Number 5. Number 5 are homecomings. Lots of the wives talked about homecomings being one of the things that their civilian counterparts just don't get. And this was one of my favorites as well. I remember when Jesse came home from Desert Storm, we decided to celebrate every holiday missed in one weekend. So we had a birthday corner, we had an anniversary corner, we did Christmas, we did Thanksgiving, we did my birthday, we did Valentine's Day, a whole, what seemed like a lifetime of memories in one weekend. Number 4, we have flexible and resilient children. This is a staple of military life. We think our kids have a unique perspective on the military life that's hard to replicate anywhere else. We can move several times in a career, or we can stay in one place our whole career in the National Guard. Our military brats experience both sides of the line and they see their guard parent walk that line as well. That's a cool example of service before self. Our children can transition from civilian to military life in an instant. That's also special. One other detail about your children, I work very hard to maintain your relationship with them when they're gone. I am your number one PR person, but it does hurt my feelings that they like you more than me when you go. And number 3, the pride in the job that my spouse does. Every single time you put on a flight suit, I am reminded that you are part of an amazing force that impacts our state, our country, and our world positively. My pride in the message that you send our children about being dedicated and sacrificing for a greater good often brings me to tears. I wish you knew that even when our children miss you, they are keenly aware that you are away for a good cause. They never display anger over you being away, and they want to be just like you. Number 2, this one's also important for you guys getting ready to leave. Think carefully about what you tell us when you're deployed. Communication is great. We love hearing your voice, but don't use that time to complain about the concert you went to last night, or that you didn't like the first run movie that you got to see last night, or that the gym is crowded when you get to go twice a day. The sightseeing and the dinners that the crews go on, sometimes we wives wish we were deployed. In our heads, we know that all of these things are good. They're good for your morale. They're good for your well-being. But it's human nature on our part to resent hearing that while we are back home dealing with home life 24/7. And that home life is what's mentioned the most from the spouses. So number 1, when you are gone, we get tired. We are so tired. We're getting up in the middle of the night. We're taking the dog out, always getting up with the kids, changing every diaper, washing every dish, taking out every trash bag, making every meal tired. It's exhausting. When you call and tell me that you're lonely when you've been gone for 6 weeks, my first reaction is to tell him I want to be lonely, even if it's only when I'm going to the bathroom when you're away. I can relate to this right now because I'm currently staying with my daughter whose husband is deployed. I'm taking care of a 1-year-old. I am never alone. He is there all the time. I remember why we have children when we're young, and you young mothers are wonderful. So before I end, for all of you, but especially for those of you who are facing deployment for the 1st or the 5th time, what I think is the most important is that you help your spouse build a support network of friends, family, and neighbors. Your spouse will need to know who they can call on for help, and more importantly, they must be willing to ask for help and accept it when it's offered. None of us can do this alone. And then finally, the most important message that came across in all of the emails that I received. Your spouses want to say to each of you, serving with you is a great privilege, and we would do it over again if given the opportunity. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here. I, unfortunately, did not get 3 weeks to plan. I was told just slightly over a week ago that I would have to speak here on, I believe, it was perhaps the second to the last day of school, and any of you mothers out there who have done the last week of school, it's awesome. I politely told Randall, I can't even think about this. I can't process this. Let's talk about it over the weekend. So a lot of what I'll have to say mimics what Mitzi said, but maybe a little bit of a different perspective or add on. A few things about us. This summer, Randall and I will have been married for 16 years. So I came to my first conference 16 years ago. It's hard to believe it's been that long. We have done 3 deployments. We have 2 kids, 10 and 7. Randall lovingly calls them the Iraq child, the Afghanistan child, and then after the second Afghanistan tour, we opted for a dog. Some of the things that I'd like you to know about my journey. First and foremost, I'm grateful. I am honored, and I am blessed to be Randall's wife. It has been a journey that's been difficult and challenging, but I wouldn't change any of it or give any of it up for the world. Being a military wife is tough. It's lonely at times, even though we're not really ever alone, especially with our kids. It can be very frustrating trying to communicate with all of you sometimes and learning. But what I've learned is that I am fiercely independent. I have learned how to be fiercely independent, and I can do it. I've learned how to be resilient and resourceful, and I'm very good at creative ingenuity when it's needed. You can ask Randall for a few of those stories. Our dog likes to escape quite regularly, and he bends metal bars. I'm not quite strong enough to bend them back, so I will grab anything to block the path. I have also had to learn that just because I can do it myself, doesn't mean I always should. I am a person who likes to do things herself and take it on, but that's not always the smartest move. We have to learn how to ask for help, and we have to learn how to accept it when it's offered, and that can be quite a challenge for those of us at home. I have been pushed to my limits. I have been pushed far outside my limits. But what I've learned is that's how we grow, and that's how we change, and that's how we become better people all around. I have learned that expectation management is crucial, and that would be a large piece of advice for you. If you say, it's the little things too, it's not these big things of expecting a deployment. If you say you're coming home at 7 o'clock, I promise I will be home at 7 o'clock, not 7:05 or 7:10. I will be home by 7 o'clock. Let me tell you the difference between coming home at 7 o'clock and coming home at 7:15. At 7 o'clock, you will have a happy wife. Your children are joyfully playing in the other room, and you have a hot meal waiting for you. In a matter of 15 minutes, total chaos will ensue in the house. Your food may be cold, or it may be burnt. Kids may be swinging from the chandelier when you arrive. Anything's possible in those 15 minutes. However, if by chance you call and say, honey, I'm not going to make it at 7, I'm going to be a few minutes late, you could avoid all of that. It's really that easy. Notes would be good, honey. Or you can borrow mine later. Something else that I do, I was reminded of last night, that really rings true very recently is I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I have very good friends, and I let them know Randall's going to be gone. We knew he was going to be gone for 3.5 weeks. We didn't know a week training was going to be tacked on to the front of it. So it became 4.5 weeks. And my friend said to me, I feel so sorry for you. And why do you feel sorry for me? It's a month and, a few days. I've done longer. I've done 12 months, I've done 10 months, and I've done 9 months. And I can handle 4.5 weeks. It's, I've learned how to be strong. I've learned how to do it myself. And I've learned how to ask for help when I need it. And I want people to know that we have the support of our military family. I've learned how to accept that help and the support from them. I don't want pity from anyone. If you want to help me, pray for me. Pray for my family. Pray for my children. Pray for my soldier. and support me, encourage me, tell me when on the days that I doubt it, how am I going to get through one more day with these screaming monkeys? That I've got it, that remind me that I've made it through so much more, and I can make it through again. The other thing is I don't want you to feel sorry for my children. My children have an amazing life. They get to see their father do amazing things. They get to see all of you do amazing things. They've learned how to be flexible. The same friend who seems to feel sorry for me, I'm going to tell you I feel a little sorry for her. My kids have learned that bedtimes can change. If Dad's not coming home till 8:30 and he's been gone, guess what? I don't care if it's a school night. My kids can stay up until 10:30. And guess what? If it's a weekend, my kids will sleep in. Her kids can stay up till 11 o'clock, and they wake up at 5:30 every single day. I'm sorry. No, thank you. I need them to sleep in. But they've learned life isn't fair, and that's okay. We learn to deal with it. And we learn how to make the best of a situation. We can be sad, and that's okay too, and we can miss people. But it doesn't mean our life stops. We keep moving, and we keep going forward. And the lessons that they are learning and the people that they are, I'm so proud of them and all of our children, because they do have that very unique perspective on life. And when their dad's home, they don't take it for granted at all. So with that, I think that's it. I don't really.
You did awesome. Okay. Do you want to ask questions?
You have a closing comment? I think,
I was just going to say, do you want to ask?
are there any questions for the spouses? We have time for maybe one or two.
Just not any of our spouses. Anyone else is allowed to ask a question, but not the three of them.
Y'all don't know how much they worried about getting here and talking.
We did. I mean, yeah, we probably made our spouses a little miserable the last few days, but I think the three of us are all extremely proud to serve with each of you, and want to support you and your spouses and your family in any way that we can. So, with that, we're done.
All right. Thank you very much. I will tell you that when I envisioned, we wanted to change the conference up a little bit and add something different. And this is the first of a couple things we're changing. And I never would have imagined the impact that these words have had. And they could have very easily done this at the spouses' brunch, but the soldiers and airmen need to hear the true feelings and thoughts of the spouse and that perspective. I've often said in speeches that the only thing harder than being a service member is loving one. And these ladies and everybody else, that they represent everybody else.